I sat down with Alexandra, and we started off by asking her about this comparison.
Historically, the presidential libraries have housed a biographical exhibit about the president, usually very, hagiographic and praiseworthy. And then they've also housed the presidential archives. So any researcher who wants to write about that president will have to go to the presidential library to research the president.
Like all the papers from their desks, all the unclassified files.
Thousands and thousands of square feet of papers. But Obama decided to do it a little differently. When they went to look at his papers, they found that 95% of them were digital because he is a contemporary president.
I do remember when I covered him, he was the first president who had his own BlackBerry. There was like a whole thing where they had to figure out how he could have a digital device. So, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so they were like, why should we build a building that has various sort of security and archival procedures that have to be kept and has these hundreds of square feet of papers if, in fact, these archives are not papers. So they decided to let the National Archives in Washington, D.C. sort of hold and take care of his papers as digital files. They'll be available to anyone, anywhere. And to make this the Obama Presidential Center rather than the library, and to have it do something different.
So then what does it do? If it's not about the paperwork, which I guess I get, it just seems strange. That's what I think of the libraries as. What is inside of it? I mean, I've seen some of the pictures. There's a costume display. There's some art. There's some exhibits. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like archival objects, like tangible objects in there.
There are actually some objects. So, what they decided to do essentially was to make one building that houses the biographical exhibit that all the presidents have. And then they have an entire rest of the campus that's doing a lot of other things. There's a forum building for events. There's a branch of the Chicago Public Library. There's a beautiful, beautiful playground. And there's home court, which is a NBA regulation-sized basketball court.
I did read that there was a basketball court. That makes sense.
Yes. So the exhibition within the museum tower, which is this 225-foot tall building that some people are calling the Obama-lisk, is 4
As opposed to obelisk, right?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
All right.
It's 4 stories of exhibitions on the life of Obama and his presidency, and the overall theme is really democracy. Like, how can we see democracy in action, kind of before, after, during his presidency? And they do actually have a lot of interesting objects in there. It opens with a display that's really about historical people-led movements. So there are objects from the abolition movement, objects from the labor movement. There is a copy of the Declaration of Independence. And then you move into the biographies of Barack and Michelle Obama, and they have a bunch of childhood things. Like they have a ceramic disc with his handprint that he made in school.
Cool. Yeah.
They have a hanging that his mother wove while she was pregnant with him. And I actually found those objects quite touching because the overall design of the exhibition, which is by Ralph Applebaum Associates, is like very word heavy, video heavy. And to me, actually, you get more emotional charge from these real things, including a number of Michelle Obama's most famous dresses that you remember seeing in a photo, or that seem like something that a president did when he was young, but you also did when you were young.
So where you seem to find this whole endeavor less successful is the actual architecture of the building itself, the form, and then kind of where it sits in the community. And by having, by trying to have several different purposes, it maybe didn't succeed at any of them. Can you explain?
Yeah. So when the Obamas decided not to have the archives on the campus, they had to decide what was the rest of its purpose? What is the purpose besides memorializing the Obama presidency? And they decided to create a bunch of community facilities that are going to be free, and by placing the whole center on the south side, by making them available to a community that historically has been under-resourced.
Right.
So that whole part is great. I mean, I could quibble with some, parts of how it's deployed, but like that seems wonderful, and that does seem like a real tribute to the ideals of the Obama presidency and the fact that he started out as a community organizer. But the building that houses the biographical exhibit is extremely oversized, extremely imperial. It stands up like this tower, and there will never be anything built around it because it's placed on the edge of Jackson Park. And that, to me, is actually really off-putting. So it's like, on one hand, they're saying, welcome, like this is a place for the community to hang out, like your kids can run around, like we have snacks. And then on the other hand, they have this, rather forbidding and foreboding, like gray granite tower that's 225 feet tall that has all of these kind of empty double height spaces inside. And it's just like, why did it need to be so big? Like, could you have correctly honored his presidency in a smaller, more approachable, more accessible building? And I really think you could have.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.